Hi, shalom friends. We live in a remarkable world, but sometimes we have to stop and just observe and reflect to appreciate how remarkable the world really is. Let's take eyesight for a moment. We all know that if you put something in front of the eye, something that interferes between the eye and the object that you're looking at, you can't see. And it doesn't really make a difference how light or how heavy it is. If I could be as light as a piece of paper, that obscures my vision, and it could be as heavy as lead. In either case, something that interferes between me and the object does not allow me to see. And then, if you just reflect for one moment, you will see that there is an object that interferes, but it doesn't seem to interfere at all. Because glass, if it is clean and very clear, even though it's put in front of our eyesight or in front of our eyeball, doesn't seem to stop us from seeing things very clearly. As a matter of fact, with the marvel of optics, if you shape the glass in a certain way, not only does this piece of intervening material not obscure the object, but on the contrary, it seems to increase the ability to see. And all of us are blessed with telescopes, and those of us that wear glasses, including yours truly, or lenses, use it on a constant daily basis. So isn't this interesting and beautiful? Something that ordinarily that would make a hefsek, would make a separation between us and the object. If it's glass, that separation doesn't really fundamentally change things. And on the contrary, if the glass is fashioned in a certain way, it brings it closer. Beautiful. We also know, though, that glass, if you do cover up something behind the glass, again, whether it be as light as a piece of paper or lead or wood or paint or anything like that, you're stuck. You cannot see through the glass. The glass doesn't allow you to see through if there's something behind the glass. Now, there is one rule that has to be added over here, and that is, it depends what the material is. So, for example, we take for granted the mirror. We look into a piece of glass, and we see a reflection of ourselves. Why is that? Because there's a type of a covering that covers the glass. I don't know, some type of a silver thing, but I really don't know what it's called scientifically. And somehow, instead of us not seeing anything, we can see. As a matter of fact, not only can we see a reflection of ourselves, but in a very odd way, we could actually say that through putting a covering on the glass, we can now see what we have never seen before, which is behind us. So now again, let's take this again philosophically. Glass allows us to see through it. Glass allows us to see further, straight and clear. If there's a covering on the back of the glass, we're stuck. We can't see anything, not further and not a reflection. But if the backing of the glass is of a certain material, though we cannot see outside of the glass, looking further ahead, a new vista and a new perspective is opened up, and suddenly we have vision behind us. Beautiful. What does this all mean, and why is a rabbi talking to you about this? Because Hasidus, Jewish mysticism, points out a remarkable lesson from this. Imagine us that we're wonderful, fine human beings, wonderful and fine, sincere Jews, and we have a vision. We're looking to connect to our Creator, to the Holy One, blessed be He. You might know that as God. Well, if all things being equal, the fact that we have a body, which might be a type of a covering over the soul, the neshama, it doesn't necessarily have to interfere with the vision. Just like clear glass, which is a physical obstruction between the person and the object, and yet clear glass doesn't seem to interfere, so too, were we to have full control and control the material that surrounds our soul, we will be able to get closer to God and see God and appreciate God, irrespective of the body. But as we all know, that's a theory which seems not to work for 99% of the people. There are those saints, there are those righteous ones, and we call them the tzaddikim. And we truly admire them and try to emulate them and learn from them. But what about me and you? So here, Hasidus or Jewish mysticism adds a beautiful thing. Sometimes the material actually can interfere with your spiritual growth. You can't see through the glass. You cannot see through the body. But now a new opportunity arises, and that is you could always use the material that had stopped you from growing and take it with you and transform it into an opportunity to do better. It's almost as if to say that when you fall down, you pick yourself up and now you're more determined to be successful. Ask any business person that has had a rough patch in his business life, or ask any professional. They don't always bat 100, but intelligent and mature professionals learn from their mistakes and will say in retrospect that that was the best thing for them. They fell, they erred, they made a mistake, they had a downfall, they were depressed, they were sad, and they took it not as a failure. They took it as an opportunity and as a challenge to strengthen themselves. So now they know what mistakes not to repeat. Now they have a deeper perspective, and with greater depth, they could approach a problem. So now, though for temporarily you couldn't see ahead, but now you see a new vision. You're able to see what you could not have seen before. So in fact, we could actually, if you were to put this like on a scale, the righteous one sees ahead and he sees distance very clear, but he cannot see the back. The penitent, the one who falls and then picks himself up and repents and returns to God, maybe he cannot see as far as the righteous one, but actually he's given a new measure of spiritual strength that the past can be rectified, the past can be elevated. This beautiful thought is expressed by the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad. But I'd like to bring this in a story form as well. There was once a very, very good-natured man, incredibly good-natured, very generous, and the reputation spread that his generosity far outpaced his physical ability to be generous. In other words, he had an open house, he gave charity lavishly, he gave of his time, gave of his smile, he gave of his personality, but essentially was a very poor person and was constantly scrounging just to make do. Well, a very holy man heard about it, came to his house, saw him in action, and said, "You know, my good friend Avraham, I give you a blessing, that your golden heart should also materialize into physical gold." He said amen. He wasn't exactly sure what the Rebbe had meant, but he had firm belief and a conviction that holy people, their words are very meaningful in heaven. And sure enough, in one of his business travels from one city to another, he found a treasure. And this treasure made him very wealthy. And it did not take long. After 6 months, he had a new house, a new business, but something drastically changed. And that was that his generosity seemed to cool down, and suddenly he had no time for the average person, and suddenly he was always preoccupied with meeting big shots, and people missed the old Abraham. He was still good, he still did what he had to do, but there was no life to him. He was a changed man. The gold had changed him. Well, the word spread to the Rebbe, whose blessing had come true, and he was very upset because he wanted to give Avraham a spiritual blessing through the physical blessing, but not the other way around. So he travels to the village where now Avraham has a new beautiful home. He hears that the holy man has come. He welcomes him graciously, shows him his house, and just by the conversation that the Rebbe has with Avraham, he sees that indeed he has changed. But he doesn't really want to he doesn't want to punish him. He just wants to teach him that there's a change. So in his tour of the house, the Rebbe points out a beautiful mirror. I mean, literally, it was from like ceiling to floor. And they both look in the mirror, and the Rebbe says to Avraham, what do you see? And Avraham says, well, Rebbe, I see a reflection of ourselves, two people. He said, that's quite interesting. Then he walks over to the window and he says, Avraham, what do you see now? He looks out through the glass and he says, well, I see Shimon, the water carrier. And the Rebbe says, correct. Let's go back to the mirror. Avraham, what do you see now? He's surprised. I mean, Rebbe, like, what do you want from me? I see a reflection. Let's go back to the window. What do you see now? Oh, I see Zlata, the seamstress. So the Rebbe asks Avraham, can you explain to me? It's a marvel. The mirror is made out of glass. The window is made out of glass. Why is it that when we look out the window, we could see someone else, but when we look in the mirror, all we see is ourselves? She said, Rebbe, because the mirror is coated with silver. Said the Rebbe slowly, aha. When glass does not have a covering of silver, the glass allows us to see others. But when glass is covered with silver, all you see is yourself. Is that what you're saying? And of course, it suddenly hit Avraham that that's what he became. Before, he was able to see others the way others should be seen, as vibrant, special, respectful human beings, and many of them could use a helping hand. But now that God had given him silver, he only saw himself. He then turned to the Rebbe. He said, Rebbe, you are a very wise man. I promise I will rectify the situation. I will use the silver not to coat the glass, but I will use where I only see myself, but I will use the silver to bring happiness to others. And that, my friend, is my message to you. All of us have a body which I liken to glass. It does interfere. There is a separation between us and the world of the divinity, but it doesn't have to interfere. And when it does, we have to take it as a mirror. We have now a new way to serve Hashem, with a new angle and with a deeper appreciation. And finally, as God blesses us with good health and with ample livelihood, and indeed with riches, let us never forget that glass, when it's covered, only allows you to see yourself. But when glass is left uncovered, what God gives you allows you to bring smiles to others. Shalom and a very wonderful, happy Hanukkah.